Matroni right before
call the Novi Board of Education regular meeting to order. Tonight is February 3rd, and I want to welcome everybody this evening. If you can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So this evening, we have Mrs. Roney joining us by phone, and she is stuck out of town, so we'll need to do a roll call vote there, Mr. Mena. If I can get a motion for the approval of the agenda. Mr. Cook? Go ahead.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Do we have support?
I'll support that.
Recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mrs. Hood. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Hood?
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy?
Here.
Trustee Roney?
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. We will move on to our next agenda item, which is the Deerfield Principal Introduction. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ruskin. We're pleased this evening to be able to have the new Deerfield principal here to be introduced to the board. Dr. Gary Kinzer, the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, will introduce Ms. Lane.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. This evening we have Mrs. Melissa Lane, our new Deerfield principal, here with us. As you recall, you approved her hire in December, and Mrs. Lane began at Deerfield on Monday. Was present Monday and Tuesday, and then obviously we had a little break. So she is anxious for the car line tomorrow morning at Deerfield Elementary School. So Mrs. Lane is here and would like to introduce herself.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Lane. I am excited to be the new principal at Deerfield Elementary. I started as a first grader at Novi Woods when my family moved to Novi and continued through the Novi Community School District all the way to high school graduation in 1998. From there, I went to Central Michigan and earned my bachelor's degree and then later my master's degree. After graduation, I spent a large part of my career in Birmingham Public Schools as an elementary teacher. I taught 3rd, 2nd, and 1st grade. I say they kept demoting me down. I kept pushing me down. And then the last 4 years I was there, I was an instructional coach. So I worked at one elementary building and I coached teachers in all subject areas K-5. From there, I moved and most recently was in Fenton area public schools for 5 years as a K-5 elementary principal. So I was really excited for this opportunity to kind of come back home. My parents and family still live in the Novi community, and I'm really excited to be here. On a personal level, I have 3 children. My husband and my children and I all live in Highland, so pretty close and very active in the community and with their sports and activities. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Lane, and welcome to Novi. We're thrilled to have you here and look forward to meeting with you personally and having conversation with you. So welcome.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Just go Chips.
All righty. And I know that Dr. Kinzer is glad to have someone following in his footsteps, and thank you for the last, it's been a long time, right?
Thank you.
All righty, we are going to move on to our next agenda item, which is comments from the audience related to agenda items. Individuals who wish to address the board must identify themselves, their address, which you can write on the green card back there, and any organization that they may represent. The board and individual board members will not directly respond to comments or questions that arise during the public participation portion of the meeting. Individuals who wish to address the board shall direct their comments to the entire board and not to individual board members, the superintendent, or other district employees or members of the audience. Behavior that is intemperate, abusive, defamatory, or discourteous, or that otherwise interferes with the orderly conduct and timely completion of the board meeting is strictly prohibited. So if anyone has any comments related to agenda items, please step up to the podium and please remember to fill out the green card and leave it for Sheila Holly in the back.
Jason Michener, Harrier Place. I just wanted to welcome Miss Lane as well. My son attends Deerfield Elementary, and also extend our thanks and gratitude to Dr. Kinzer, braving some of the coldest weeks at Deerfield and getting us through the car lines. As a parent, I definitely appreciate that quickly and efficiently and keeping all our kids safe. So I know my son liked to say hi to you every morning. And it was really funny, actually, one day, Dr. Kinzer was like, oh, it's cold. And my son ran yelling out the window, Dr. Kinzer, I can't wait to go to recess and play outside. But he took it all with an incredible humor. So thank you so much, and look forward to working with you, Ms. Lane. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mishner. Do we have any other comments from the audience related to agenda items? We'll have another opportunity for comments from the audience later in our agenda. Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to the next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. We have 3 items on our current consent agenda. We have the approval of the minutes, the regular meeting minutes of January 20th, 2022. The approval of the bills, which is the board report, the check register for December 2021, purchase card report for November 2021. Approval of 2 field trips, which is the Novi Palm State Competition and the Winter Guard International Championship Competition. If I may get a motion for the recommendation? Mrs. Hood?
I move that the Novi Community Schools Board of Education approve the consent items as presented.
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mr. Mena. We can get a roll call vote, Mr. Mena?
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Hood?
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Roney? Trustee Ruskin?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. We have 2 action items this evening. We will start with our personnel report. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin, and I'll go to Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. This evening, we have 4 new hires. Marlene Krukowski, special education teacher at Deerfield Elementary School. Lauren Russ, math teacher at Novi High School. Evelyn Scott, math teacher at Novi High School. And Danielle Stacer, nurse for the district. We have 2 position changes. Justine Geiger, student data assistant in career prep. Preetha Salvo, special education parapro at Deerfield Elementary School. We have 1 resignation. Tara Shefferly, a social worker at the Rohr Center, and 2 leaves of absence. Amber Naroyan, this is a year 1 child care leave of absence. She is a special education teacher at Novi Middle School. And Carly Valentine, secretary at the ECEC, also a year 1 child care leave of absence.
Thank you, Dr. Kinzer. If I may get a motion for the recommendation? Mr. Smith?
I'll move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education adopts the personnel report and recommendations as presented.
Support.
Recommended by Mr. Smith and supported by Mrs. Murphy. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Dr. Kinzer? Mr. Smith?
I mentioned something to Dr. Kinzer before our meeting started, but I want to, not only compliment you, but compliment the community and our board. I happen to know, not personally, but one of the candidates that we hired at the high school to be a math teacher, and I actually know her aunt, and her aunt's been asking me, like I have control over this stuff, like, what can I do to get her niece into our school district? And we just didn't have a position open, and she took a position in Royal Oak, and then as soon as this position opened, she was brought on board. So I just, it's hard for many districts, including ours, to find competent, qualified teachers. And I think it's a testament to the work that the cabinet's done and that we've done, that we still are a district choice, a destination district, if you will. And I think we're really blessed and fortunate to be able to attract teachers from other school districts within our community that are willing to leave and come here. So that's just great stuff. And, Gary's got a great story about, these 2 candidates that were neck and neck for the interview. And it's again, it's a testament to how we're positioning ourselves and really trying to be proactive, building a staff that can not only fill the immediate holes that we have, but be on board to help with some of the openings that we'll anticipate. So as Stephen Covey would say, it's a good thing to be proactive, right? So anyway, thanks, Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any other comments? I wanted to acknowledge and say that I'm thrilled to see Danielle, the nurse on here, as a new hire. I know that she has worked diligently with Kathy Ferris and the team for the last 2 years, and she started off with through a grant that was offered for nurses, especially in districts who did not have a school nurse. We were lucky enough to already have somebody at least part-time on board, and I know that Kathy and Danielle work just amazingly and dynamically together and have really helped in difficult days and times throughout the last 2 years. So I'm thrilled to see that she will be a permanent part of our staff here in Novi.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other comments, if we can get a roll call vote there, Mr. Mena?
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Hood?
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Roney?
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Next on our action items, we have the Superintendent's Evaluation. And I'm happy to read this.
I would prefer that you read.
Okay. So you don't have to speak in third person about yourself, that would be great. Okay, tonight the Novi Community School District Board of Education formalizes the 2021 Superintendent Evaluation. The board met in closed session on January 6th, 2022 at the request of Dr. Matthews, complying with the Open Meetings Act guidelines to review his performance for 2021. The revised school code requires school boards to evaluate their superintendent's job performance annually as part of a comprehensive performance evaluation system that takes into account student growth data and requires certain additional factors. The rating categories in the evaluation are as follows: governance and board relations, community relation, staff relations, business and finance, instructional leadership, student growth, progress toward district-wide goals. The evaluation meeting, the board took no action, but comes this evening to finalize the 2021 Superintendent Evaluation. If I may get a motion for the recommendation from a fellow board member? Mrs. Murphy?
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve the 2021 Superintendent Evaluation, rating Dr. Stephen Matthews as highly effective.
Thank you. If I can get support?
I'll support.
Recommended by Mrs. Murphy and supported by Mr. Smith. Do we have any comments? Okay. We had a lot of talk in closed session. We spent a great deal of time with Dr. Matthews, receiving his feedback from his self-evaluation and spending time with each of us and giving our feedback. So we're thrilled to move forward with you having a highly effective rating, Dr. Matthews.
Thank you.
I just gotta say that, we're kind of limited on the evaluation methodology that we can use. Not that I disagree with the rating, I totally agree with it. I just don't like the rating system and the way it is, and I wish the MASB would listen to some of the higher performing districts out there, because this is written for lower performing districts trying to dig themselves out of a hole, more or less, in my opinion. But I totally support this rating, but I really wish the MASB would use, something a little bit better and allow us to use something better for rating systems, because it doesn't take enough of the district goals into account.
Thank you, Mr. Cook, and I appreciate you making that comment. I think that we all, as trustees, made comment towards that and agreed, as did Dr. Matthews. The rubric is a little antiquated, and we're kind of stuck into it, and per the law, we need to follow exactly what it says, and it doesn't always give us opportunity to really make it a personalized rubric for our district.
With the rating of Dr. Matthews aside, I agree. He does deserve the rating
excellent.
he got, so.
I agree. Mr. Mena?
That doesn't mean we didn't have the opportunity to give a lot of feedback. I think we were able to give a lot of constructive feedback. I think you would agree, and I've been through quite a few of these over the years, and we've seen them, some go really smooth and some not go so smooth, and I continue to be happy and very excited for the way we're able to perform as a board together, and I just really enjoyed that process, and I just think it went really well, and And yeah, and I totally agree that you certainly deserve the highly effective rating as well. And you know I would tell you. As I would, yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mena. Any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, if we can get a roll call vote there, Mr. Mena?
Trustee Cook.
Yes.
Trustee Hood.
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Roney.
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. We will move on to our next agenda portion, which is information and discussion. Tonight, we only have one item for information and discussion, and this is the MASB Board of Directors election 2022. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. Every year in February, the Novi Community School District Board of Education, as a member of the Michigan Association of School Boards, has the right to cast a ballot for a group director in the MASB Board of Directors election. Regions are based on geography. Novi will be casting one vote in Region 8, districts with pupil membership between 5,001 and 11,000. In our Region 8, there are 4 candidates running for 1 seat. Region 8 has a 3-year term. So they're Melandy Hines from Wayne Westland, Darlene Pompano, the incumbent, Southgate, Angie Smith from Farmington, and Michael Swicky from Wyandotte Public Schools. You're asked to approve tonight for whom they would like to cast your vote for. So we have until, I think this is for information discussion, so we'll bring this back at the February 17th meeting for you to actually cast your vote. You have information on the 4 candidates. Some of you may know them from your work with MASB in various activities. And so you have between now and then to kind of come up with your selection, and then tell us that, and Ms. Holly will cast your ballot.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. And yes, I'm glad this is on for information and discussion, because the other day I had a little bit of a panic moment and thought, okay, we haven't discussed this, and we have Open Meetings Act, so are we going to be voting on something? But all the CVs are in front of us. If anyone has any comments that they'd like to make publicly, if they know someone from their work on the MASB or have read a specific CV that spoke to them, please feel free to do so. Or you may also send that via email.
Do we know how long the terms are?
This is a 3-year term.
Okay.
So if you'd like to make suggestions, Ms. Holly could collect those, and we could get those out to the board before the meeting on the 17th. However you'd like to have that.
Okay. Thank you. Alrighty, so we will review that information and move that to action at our next meeting. So we'll move on to, we have 2 committees that met. We have the Capital Projects Committee and the Governance and Policy Committee. So we have committee reports. I'll start with Mr. Mena, the Capital Projects Committee Chair.
Yeah, we had a robust, probably hour-and-a-half meeting, and really it was to discuss all the ongoing projects that are happening in the district, timeline for completion, and also we discussed sort of some governance ideas moving forward with how we're going to move forward with the rest of the bond dollars. So it was pretty much summed it up.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mena, and thank you to your team for getting together and spending time meeting, talking about capital projects. And our second committee that has met since our last regular meeting was the Governance and Policy Committee, and Mr. Smith is our chair. Thank you for serving in that role. And if you'd just like to give a brief summary, kind of where we're at and the plan for the next meetings, that would be great.
Sure. The 2 main topics that came up on Tuesday, February 1st, when we met, were addressing our social media policy and communications policy with the public. That would include everything from district devices to personal devices, social media, not just on, posting on Facebook, but Twitter accounts and whatnot. So there was a discussion on that. We've asked for some more clarification on some different policies and are looking at what some other school districts have in place with regards to that. The other item that we talked about was really more of a continuation on a couple of things that carried over from last year. I know I'm missing one, but we talked about committee assignments or the frequency that committees are meeting. There was some discussion on specifically the ad hoc committees, and as they come up, the DEI committee and the legislative committee. And again, we've asked for some clarification, and since then, I know we've gotten some input and suggestions from the public, so we're taking all that into consideration. What am I missing, Paul, Willie? We also talked about a continuation of really hammering out the definitions that we would use, for example, between a textbook that would be used in the classroom and a book that would show up in the media center, the differences between the two, what would be considered a textbook and what would be considered a book or an aid that would be used and brought in, let's say, by the teacher. But I'm missing one of the other things that we talked about. I looked for my note, I didn't see it.
Gifts.
Oh, thanks, RJ.
My pleasure.
Yeah, the last thing was clarification on the difference between a gift and a grant, which might seem relatively straightforward, but there were some comments brought to our attention about grant money that was used that did not come before the board for approval. So we sought input. It's not like we don't do anything when we get these ideas, but we'll typically get an idea, then we'll have to go to our legal counsel. We get an opinion from them. We look at what other districts have in place. And it was pretty clear that the fundamental difference was if I give you a gift, you do with it what you want. If I give you a grant, it's usually tied to some particular outcome or some particular use. So we're continuing to really, as with all these policies, do our best to really articulate in our policy, our written policy, a clear definition of what is what.
God bless you.
And then also importantly, what would be considered a violation of that. In the absence of that clarification is, interpretation. And in this day and age, it seems like some of our challenges in the gray area or in what would be a subjective decision on is that a violation or what is this used for? So we're trying as a policy or as a committee designing our policy to eliminate as much as we can the ambiguity between these different topics. But yet, I think it's important for all of us to give our teachers as much berth as they need as professionals in the classroom. So it's that fine line like everything in life. But the other thing I want to report to the public is I think it's a good thing that Trustee Cook and Trustee Mena and I are serving on the Capital Projects Committee and on the Governance and Policy Committee. And directionally, what we agreed on this week was instead of meeting on Monday for 90 minutes and then on Tuesday for 65 minutes or whatever it was, we're going to try to coordinate those two committees where they can meet on one day. And then that would even help you, Jason, so you let us travel. But what we talked about was if we increase the frequency of those meetings, we can get more done more quickly and hopefully take less time in the meetings. So what you'll see as the public is we're going to shift from, let's say, the capital projects or capital committee meeting every 6 weeks to meeting every 4 weeks. So I think with an increased cadence, we'll be able to get through more things and get through them more quickly with less intrusions on your personal lives. So that's a detailed update.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you for chairing the committee, and thank you for the update on the plan moving forward. I think that will be helpful and relieve us of big time spans between committee meetings so that if anything needs to be brought to the board as a whole, it can be done in a more expedient fashion. So thank you for that. We will move on to our second opportunity for comments from the audience. If anybody has any comments, please go up to the podium. Make sure you fill out a green card when you're completed. Mr. Mena has a timer. We have a big timer now, so he's not screaming out at 30 seconds and making everyone feel uncomfortable in the room. So just watch your timer. And
all right, 5 minutes is plenty for me. My name is Marion Mahoney. I'm speaking on my own behalf this evening. I live on Westmont Drive and have lived there for 26 years. I have 2 daughters who are graduates of the Novi schools, and I'm thrilled to let you know that they're thriving, doing very well. So I listened to the last board meeting, and there were a number of people that spoke on the topic of SEL. Some of them described SEL as, a waste of time, even calling it brainwashing. So, I'm here to speak to disagree. I really disagree with that opinion. I believe that the SEL curriculum really teaches the students really essential skills. I have many years of work experience, several years with a Fortune 200 company in the Human Resources Organization. And in that role, I was a part of a team that developed assessments for our employees and our leaders. And those assessments were designed to really understand what the gaps are, the skill gaps, what we would call soft skill gaps, among the employees and the leaders. We also developed and purchased resources, to help close those gaps. And from that experience, I know that those individuals that, really had those skills, had mastered those skills, those were the folks that really thrived in the work environment. Those are the people that, were typically among those that were identified as really, potential leaders. They were put on accelerated career paths. Those were people that, really got the most, the best results with their teams. People wanted to work with them. They really were, came to the workplace with great skills that were really, really useful, very valuable to the organization. On the same hand, those individuals that really didn't have those skills or were really weak in the soft skills, those are the folks that really struggled. And a lot more work had to be done to help them really close those gaps, if it was even possible to close those gaps. So my experience tells me this is really, you're on the right path. The SEL curriculum is something that really has great value. Not only, that helps the students thrive in the school, but also as they graduate into advanced educational and situations and work in life. So please continue on that path. You're on the right path. Keep doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mahoney. And please fill out a green card. I hate to be like such a nuisance and reminder, but I just want to make sure that Sheila has the appropriate information for public record, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I did. I handed it.
Thank you, perfect. Anybody else have any comments?
After you.
Good evening. My name is Amy Krupkin, and I have 2 children in Novi Community Schools, 1 high school freshman and 1 fifth grader. I wanted to speak tonight to express my support of the SEL curriculum that includes diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as my support for the curriculum and books that speak out about things like the Holocaust, racism, and LGBTQ issues. I'm not sure why people are coming and don't want our students to embrace the diversity of this district in which we live, but seem to think that only white, cisgendered voices should be heard. As a parent of white children, I've only seen these discussions in curriculum benefit them and teach them skills that they will need in life, such as empathy, cooperation, critical thinking, and compassion. Our district has many minority students with over 50 different languages spoken and quite a few students that identify as LGBTQ. With that amount of minority and marginalized students that we have, you can bet many have had to deal with xenophobia, racism, or homophobia at some point in their lives. And if they can experience it, my white children can learn about it. I've listened over the last year as people have gotten up to speak at this podium during general school board meetings and curriculum committee meetings, attacking the materials used and topics covered in some classes. In the last curriculum meeting in the fall, a parent spoke out about a memoir book chosen for freshmen called Born a Crime by Trevor Novi. I was aware that this was a choice to read, and I stress choice, but my child had chosen a different book during that unit, so I didn't give it another thought. They got up here and read a passage in the book that contained swearing and asked the question of, can't Novi schools do better than this? And said some other things that stuck with me, so much so that it made me buy the book to see what it was all about. And as I was reading it, I was dumbfounded by the fact that this person had read this entire book, and all they took away from it was a bit of swearing. As I read the book, when I got to the excerpt they read during the meeting that they gave no background about, in which the author, as a little boy, doesn't want to go out in the cold and rain to the outhouse, so he poops on the floor and cleans it up. But he says shit instead of poop and says it many, many times. All I could think of is a 9th grade boy reading this and cracking up. and wanting to read more, and that is what kids get excited about reading. Besides the swearing, it was such a powerful read, and it taught me so much more about apartheid than I'd ever known. And one excerpt in the book stood out, and it says, I went through those pictures knowing how much my family pictures meant to me, and I thought, I haven't stolen someone's camera, I've stolen someone's memory. I've stolen parts of someone's life. It's such a strange thing, but in 2 years of hustling, I never once thought about it as a crime. I honestly didn't think it was bad. It was just stuff people found. White people have insurance. Whatever rationalization was handy. In society, we do terrible things to one another because we don't see the person it affects. We don't see their face, we don't see them as people. Which was the whole reason the hood was built in the first place, to keep victims of apartheid out of sight and out of mind. Because if white people ever saw black people as human, they would see slavery as unconscionable. We live in a world where we don't see the ramifications of what we do to others because we don't live with them. It would be a whole lot harder for an investment banker to rip off people with subprime mortgages if he had to live with them. If we could see one another's pain and empathize with one another, it would never be worth it to commit the crime in the first place. I couldn't bring myself to sell the camera because I felt ashamed. This is what we want our children. This is what we want for our children, to empathize and to learn from literature. To see an author realize he was doing something wrong and realize why he shouldn't. Did the book have swearing? Yes, but have you ever walked down a middle school or high school hallway? I do it every day, and I can't tell you the times I have to say, watch your language, because they don't realize an adult is present. The groups that are attacking our teachers and administrators are hiding behind parent choice and parent rights under some misguided thought that parents don't already have a say in our schools. There are so many ways parents can be involved if they choose. For example, they can be part of the PTO. They can, in normal years, volunteer in the classroom, attend curriculum night, attend parent-teacher conferences, coffee with the superintendent, and etc. If they truly have an issue with something in the curriculum, they can contact the teacher. In my 20 years as a middle school teacher and 15 as a parent, I have never met a teacher that wouldn't give an alternate assignment if a parent asked. Our teachers are professionals, many with graduate degrees in their content area. We need to trust that they have the students' best interests in mind when they are choosing books and curriculum to get our children to think critically and learn to be citizens in a global society. If a parent has a problem with something their child is asked to read or an assignment that they may do, it is very easy to contact the teacher and have that discussion, but that parent does not and should not get to limit the access to information that my child gets to learn from. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Crumpkin. Do we have any other comments from the audience?
Good evening, everybody. Betsy Bodwine, love the clock. So at the policy meeting this week, which I did not attend, but I was able to watch online, there was discussion about our social media policy that you brought up again this evening. And I just wanted to share my thoughts with that publicly and get it all on the record out loud. For over a decade, our district has proudly shared that social justice is one of our pillars and held it in the same esteem as K-12 writing. I remember this from when my oldest was at Village Oaks in like kindergarten, first grade, and I proudly attended all of the curriculum meetings, which I no longer do for third kid. But, okay, so social justice is one of our district's pillars because we know students perform better when they feel seen and valued. That has consistently been what we have known to be true. If these things are part of our curriculum and they're a part of our values as a district, when our teachers support them online and speak about the value of these programs, they should be applauded, not penalized. If we do not value social justice and hold it in the same esteem that we hold K-12 writing, per the diagram from when my oldest was younger, then we need to reevaluate those policies and in writing tell the community where you all stand. If these things continue to be a priority, then we should applaud when people support our district's goals out loud. That should be something that we are thankful for. Professionals all over the country and the world support the companies they work with on social media by sharing their company's goals and things that they're proud of. I have a friend who works for Ford, and she shares stuff about how great they are all the time. It's her job. She's thanked for it. So I think that that's really an important thing for us to realize, that we need to make sure that our actions and the way that we're portraying things in writing is also how we're treating our staff. Now, if these teachers know that you want them to do these things and you want them to be addressing racism when they see it and all of these things, that should be publicly applauded so that they all know where your heart is. And that, I think, is kind of my main point here. Finally, I would point out also that there is currently a teacher shortage, as we learned at our workshop meeting. And if that continues to be the case as projected, it makes no sense at all to make Novi a less friendly place for teachers to work. So I would encourage you to consider that while you're evaluating social media policy, because if I have an option to work somewhere where they allow me freedom of speech, I'm probably going to pick that over somewhere where they do not. So thank you. I'm sorry my comments are a little scattered. It's been kind of a long week already. 2 snow days in a row. Been appreciated. My children are disappointed they don't have the third. Their mother's not.
They are not alone in their disappointment.
Yes, I heard that. Good evening, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bodine. Do we have any further comments?
Hi, my name is Raj Schlussman. I've been in the Novi School District for almost 40 years. Both of my children went through Novi schools, completely from K through 12. But it's been some time since they've been in school. What I'm addressing the board tonight is I support the initiatives and programs to address diversity and social learning in our school board, or in our school district. I want to thank Tom Smith, I forgot my glasses, so I can't see.
You got it, it's an easy one.
Yeah, for mentioning, or bringing up the DEI committee. I'm looking forward to see more about that and what's going on. From some of the comments tonight, I realize there's a lot that I need to learn that I'm not aware of, with, the SEL committee or initiative, as well as other things. But the program should be teaching students the value of diversity, equity, inclusion for all students in Novi's growing diverse population. I work for a large corporation, and we had diversity training about 20 years ago. And it was all about working with the team members and realizing everyone's different backgrounds so we could work more efficiently and effectively together. It was interesting because you did see where someone's point of view would be coming from, and we could work better together. And it was always something that I carried with me, whether it was corporation lip speak or whatever. It didn't matter. I got something out of it. And it's something I continue to practice. Nobody's evolving, and this is an excellent environment for students to develop more sophisticated social skills before pursuing post-secondary education endeavors, which was mentioned already. I think it's a great place. And what better way to prepare students for the real world, which includes many people often having different backgrounds and circumstances. In a large corporation, you run into that every day. As society changes, and Novi in particular, it used to be just a pure white school 40 years ago. It's completely changed, which is great. We've got more culture. And I think instead of being in a sterile environment, we're in something that's much more fun. But we need to adapt and change to remain effective. Employers seek people with talents, including high emotional quotient, to collaborate with others, be it coworkers, customers, others, as well as recognizing problems and being creative to develop solutions to those problems. Discrimination negatively affects one's self-image. I'll go a little bit more into that. It can be discrimination based on so many different things, but when you're left out or you're excluded, you're not part of what's going on, that doesn't help you out very much, and you're pushed to the side. I think we really need to address that. So every child should be treated with dignity and respect in our schools. Each member of the student body should see themselves as accepted, appreciated for who they are and what they can contribute, because, you know, everyone has different things and skills they bring along with them. Our schools are safer with everyone when everyone receives support and understanding and is accepted by all others. It's, you know, it's a school environment, so it still has its challenges. Social skill development is necessary to realize this vision. We all need to hone skills and appreciate others and their experiences, not just students, all of us. Novi Public School Board has a great opportunity and I believe a responsibility to foster this inclusive development by understanding and implementing DEI practices and policies within our educational system. Again, I wish to thank you all for my opportunity to speak to you tonight, and thanks so much. I did fill out a green card.
Can I say I appreciate your vintage band boosters?
It's for one that's kids were in school, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any further comments from the audience? If we do, please step up to the podium.
Good evening, friends. I'm Mike Betts, former resident of Novi and now live in West Bloomfield, but we were residents here for 21 years. Just hearing some of the comments tonight, I just wanted to come up and share with you that I have 3 children that all went through Novi School District, graduates in 2013, 2016, and 2017. And when they went off to college, I asked them, okay, tell me about what Novi did to prepare you for university life. And the answer they gave was really interesting because I was expecting an academic response, like really strong curriculum. And what they actually came back with was really fascinating. What they said was how unprepared the other students were in their university to sit next to kids from other countries. It's not just our own country, but people from other nations. And getting into working groups, they mentioned that they were very well prepared to be able to interact with those students most effectively. So what we're doing here in the school district around inclusion, around making sure that our kids have exposure to all manner of thought, we need to continue because it is paying off with students, not only in the past, but it will pay off in the future. So we will be here to continue to support you in that endeavor, and we'll see you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Betts. Any additional comments?
Jason Mitchell, Harriet Place. So I just wanted to kind of summarize what I heard because I was very encouraged and inspired. I want the board to know clearly that there is a large swath of Novi Community School District parents and residents that greatly appreciate all your efforts for diversity, equity, inclusion. We greatly appreciate all the efforts that are done for social emotional learning, especially coming out of the pandemic. I mean, we're all a little bit off after being isolated and locked down and having to do DoorDash and figuring out how to get around. And I mean, who doesn't need that extra support? And it was a program that was in place before that. So, I mean, I'm just so grateful it was already there. Now we can just lean harder into that. I think the takeaway that I hope the board hears is that there is a large group of people in your school district sending their kids to your schools every day that are entrusting you and supporting you to give them a holistic education. Your vision statement says that you are working, your vision is to strive to have passionate, empowered, prepared students for their world and their future. And as the last person just spoke, testifies, that's exactly what you're accomplishing. Don't take a step back, don't flinch. Let's keep moving forward together. You know, let's stick to the mission statement you have where you're trying to have a culture of unity, you know, equity of opportunity, where you're trying to inspire learning and you're trying to have a community of well-being. All these things get accomplished in those extra supportive programs. They intertwine so well with the math, sciences, and fine arts. They kind of hold it together, the glue that makes everything come together. And as you heard, those skill sets isolated and by themselves are very power limited. But when you put them together with that holistic glue, you come out with a well-rounded student that is prepared for their world and their future. So I just encourage you to keep continuing to press on, even if it gets difficult. There are definitely parents and citizens in Novi that greatly support your efforts. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mishner. Do we have any additional comments from the audience?
Hello, my name is Colleen Crosby. I just saw myself in the monitor. I want to support our board here as well. I want to tell you something. I grew up in a small town very much like Novi. It was Saline. We used to play each other before Novi got so big. And it was a very white community. And I was very sheltered as a child. I was class of 80. Yay. And when someone was talking about it's important to expose yourself to people of different countries, I can tell you what it was for me when you don't. I went to a city that was large and diverse, and I happened to see a woman who had something on that covered her face, and this was shocking to me. You know, I was scared. I was actually scared to sit down next to her on the bus until she finally goes, pats the seat, as if, you know, it's okay, I'm not gonna bite, just sit. So it's important, not just social skills, but that's important, as you said. In Novi, well, actually, as I got older and took social work curriculum, I unlearned some of that strange kind of white-only culture, and it was inspiring. It was great, and I'm still learning every day. I challenge myself. When I came to Novi, one of the things that I asked the girls as a Girl Scout leader, what kind of project would you like to do? And it was a predominantly black group, and they say they would like to do an anti-bullying project. And so that's what we did. One of the things that the girls came up with was a poster that said, "Don't be rude, include." And I thought that was pretty cool. So of course, I'm very pro diversity, and of course, in terms of preparing students for being part of a global society, it's very important too. We've got about 50 different languages being spoken at homes in Novi. And then also the last point that I want to make, I'm also skipping around. The last point that I want to make is this notion of banning a book, or, you know, like what they're doing with that book, Mouse. I think it's, I don't know what the school is, but MAUS. Well, apparently, when you ban a book, it increases sales. So that's not really the direction a person might want to go when they put constraints on a book or on a curriculum. So I just want to say, with the persons that I've worked with before on the board in other capacities, you've had my back. So I also want to have yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Crossley.
Good evening. Sujata Raman. I have 2 children in the district. I just kind of wanted to echo some of the things that have been said here today. I really like the discussion that's been happening. I too was a little bit disheartened by some of the things that were said at the last board meeting. I was at the policy meeting the other night, and I had some concerns with some of the things that were discussed there too, or the things that were said. And I know that's already been spoken to. What I wanted to say was that, this is something these are not my own words, but I agree with them, so I'm gonna share them. Equity of opportunity doesn't mean just student achievement. Though achievement gaps should also be examined and addressed, but equity of opportunity also means the opportunity to feel safe, seen, and heard. A parent who does not want their child to know about LGBTQ experiences can follow the parental objection policy. We have that here in Novi. And as one of the other speakers said tonight, they have never come across a situation where if a parent had a concern with something that was being taught or presented to their child, to just address it with a teacher. I said that at the last meeting. I've always had that experience. I've always been able to talk to my child's teachers, and there's never been an issue. But that doesn't mean, just because a parent has an objection for their child, that doesn't mean that those students shouldn't be able to see themselves in the curriculum, in the media center selections. So we have a policy, we have the ability as parents to, give our children a different option if we don't like the options that are being presented. I was watching the news the other night, and my daughter walks in the room and she watches a little bit of the story, and it was actually one of the stories about the book banning. I know the previous speaker spoke of here. And she's listening to the story, and she says to me after it's over, she's kind of asking me about it. And I told her, I said, well, there in some parts of the country right now, there are groups that are that don't like some of the books that are options for kids to read in school, and so they are pushing to have those books banned. And she said, Mom, I don't understand. She said, if they don't want to read them, they don't have to read them, but they should still be. What if I want to read it? And she's 10. She's 10. So, I would caution, I know there's discussion about approval by the board of the books and the textbooks and that the kids are given as options for, in the schools. And I understand that to some degree that's the board's duty, but I just caution you to consider that just because one or two people are not interested or object to it and don't want their children exposed to that information or that material, that shouldn't limit what other children are allowed to choose from, because that might speak to them. And I think the entire idea behind DEI is making sure that we are including everybody. So please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Do we have any further comments from the audience? Okay. Seeing none, thank you everybody for coming this evening. It's nice to have a full house, even in a little bit of a snowstorm. Dr. Matthews wouldn't think it's a snowstorm because he didn't call it snow days. I beg to differ, it's still a snowstorm, so. Thank you very much. We will move on to our next agenda item, which is our superintendent's report. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Eskin. First, I would like to, my report this evening has several parts. First, I would like to respond to statements that were made at the last board meeting about a social emotional learning guide. This guide was developed by teachers and administrators in our district as a support for teachers and administrators as they tried to support students in our schools. As all of us have become aware since the pandemic started, and that some of us knew before the pandemic started, our students struggle at times. Not all of them, not all at once, and not all of the time. But our students have been thrust into an unprecedented situation. As a district, as professional educators who have given our professional lives to students, we felt we had an obligation to try and provide resources that would support our students as they tried to navigate through the pandemic. It was suggested that this social emotional learning guide was somehow hidden and never discussed publicly in our district. That is far from the truth. The guide was developed by our staff as a way to bring a variety of resources together to provide ideas for teachers, staff, and administrators to use to support students. The SEL guide use national standards developed by a group called CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning. The CASEL framework is built around 5 standards for students and adults: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. The guide provides a variety of ideas. Some create controversy, some have wide agreement, but all of it makes me and others in our district think and gives me and others in our district tools to use to support our students. Is this a mandatory tool or guide? No, it is not. It is a resource that provides ideas. It was created at a time when teachers and administrators were asking for resources. It was created at a time when some parents were telling us that some students were struggling. It was created to provide our staff some support as we look to find ways to help our students. The inference was that we have kept this hidden and that we did so because we did not want parents to know what we were talking about with the students in our schools. That is, in my opinion, far from the truth. We presented it to the board in a public meeting on March 4th, 2021. It is not posted on our website because it is a teacher resource. It was also suggested that we should examine our academic advisory times that we provide at schools. We provide these times at each of our levels. They have academic and social emotional component to them. Elementary schools have WIN, what I need time, and multi-grade cabin or village or community time. WIN time is daily and the multi-age community time is often weekly or monthly. At middle school we have A20, which has an academic time and a community building time. The high school has academic advisory, which has an academic and community building time as well. The community building aspect has been questioned for its value. We created this time so that we can build community within our schools. Strong communities enhance academic performance. Strong, supportive communities that support all students create schools that encourage and support all students as they strive to grow and reach their potential. Schools cannot, in my opinion, be focused exclusively on academics. This week, our girls' basketball team held its annual recognition of each player's favorite teacher. Those teachers are their favorites, not only because they are good teachers, but because they build relationships with students. They get to know students, they are a listening ear to students, they provide guidance, they mentor, they push, they encourage. This is community building. Our community building time in our schools is done to provide us time to focus on community building, and in doing so, we make our academic program that much stronger. The second part of my report is on our board committee work. I think we have created a strong committee structure, but it takes time, and it will be messy. Some of the topics that we will discuss potentially will be filled with emotion. But I am confident that we can find our way through these discussions as we listen to each other, try to understand other people's points of view, and believe that all of us want what is best for the students in our district. We craft policies and make decisions to build a school district that supports our students. Everyone will make mistakes from time to time. Most errors are handled through our HR process, and the community will not know what discussions were held with the employee who made a mistake, because that is the way the system is supposed to work. At times, emotions will run hot, but we should find ways to listen and understand that will lead to solutions and not just focus on punishment. Finally, as you can see, all of us up front are wearing Oxford Strong shirts this evening. This is part of a larger effort to support our friends, students, and the community of Oxford. All Novi students and staff are encouraged to wear navy and gold tomorrow, Friday, February 4th, or, if you have it, an Oxford Strong shirt. Tomorrow, Friday, February 4th, anyone wearing an Oxford Strong shirt can get into the basketball games at Novi High School for free. And finally, I would just like to thank the board for their evaluation of me and let you know that I am pleased that I can serve this community.
You say free? Please keep the lights on.
He meant the basketball game,
Yes.
even though you're pleased.
Oh,
He
yes.
wants to know
The
if it's
basketball
free
game
to go
is
to
for
the
free if
basketball
you
game.
wear blue and gold or an Oxford Strong shirt.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews, for that report. I appreciate it. We'll move on to our administrative reports, and first we have Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Dr. Leslie. One quick FYI item. Cindy Valentine, our Director of Transportation, she has met the requirements to renew her certification, Transportation Director certification with the MSBO, and it's good through June 30th, 2026, and I want to commend her and recognize her for her efforts there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Dr. Kinzer?
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. Monday will be our fourth Mentee Monday session of the year. This is going to be a virtual session. Jeff Dinkelman, Director of Student Growth and Accountability, will join me, and we will be reviewing the State of Michigan professional development requirements for new teachers, discussing the options in our district for meeting those requirements and how we document.
Thank you, Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you.
Dr. Weber?
Certainly, thank you. On 1/24/22, a fantastic article came out in the Detroit Free Press about the pandemic hitting some of our students hard and why some teachers are hopeful for English language learners. So 1/3 of our students in Novi are English language learners or formerly English language learners, and it was great to see a top fold, at least digitally, story that included some of our teachers and kids there and being recognized for the incredible work that they do. Really, it said a few comments tonight, but proud of our students and staff for weathering what has been an exceptionally difficult January for many people due to the rise in Omicron and the amount of people who have been out. 5th and 6th grade camp is happening right now, which is fantastic. And I'd like to back up a little something that Dr. Matthews had said earlier. And I shared this via my Twitter account. I think I tweeted about 20,000 times in my 11 years in this community. And no, it keeps track, I have. So I included this on a tweet because it says something about how when we share who we are with the world and the community, and we either are vulnerable or proud of the work we do or where we work. So I got a LinkedIn communication about a month ago, and it said, my name is, and I'll leave his name off. I was your student at Mayflower Junior School at Kenne. You taught me English in primary 4 sometime in 1991. I'm certain you won't remember me, but I do remember you even after 30 years. And this is the part that Dr. Matthews, and this is so important. Thank you for being an inspiration. Surprisingly, I can't remember anything you taught me. But I can clearly remember the feeling of inspiration and excitement you brought to the class. So what that's led to is some conversations, and actually one of the speakers tonight at the podium who talked about the Trevor Noah book and the camera. So these kids didn't have any pictures taken of them, none. So I sent him a picture of his class. It's a picture I have in my office. And he said that that era for them was an era of absolute isolation. This is before the internet and before those pieces. And the point is, the relationships that our students build with our staff, be it teachers or principals, is really what carries on. There cannot be meaningful learning if that relationship isn't there. So we need to think about that is we come to meetings and talk about each other in ways where it does, I believe, that many people have platforms, but very few people have true accountability. So with that said, I'd like to celebrate Black History Month for a second, and I'd like to read a couple things from 2 of my very favorite poets and authors. The first is Zora Neale Hurston, and Zora Neale Hurston, a couple quotes from her, and one was especially prescient, another comment tonight. There are years that ask questions and years that answer. I think we're all still waiting for an answer because the past 2 years have been hard on all of us. And then this one I thought was great. I love myself when I'm laughing. And then again, when I'm looking mean and impressive. I like that. Langston Hughes, another amazing American poet in the Harlem Renaissance. I will now read I Too to finish up. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes. But I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, They'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I, too, am America. And that was written in 1926. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weber, and we appreciate those words and your recognition for Black History Month. Moving on, we will have an opportunity for board communication. Do any board members, Mr. Smith?
I want to go first because my opening comments are a little heavy, and then I'll try to lighten it up, and then you guys don't have to follow that.
Well, thanks for thinking of us.
I appreciate your guys' support, and I'll address my comments to you. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks that I went up and found my father dead on his kitchen floor. You know, since then I've had to go through some stuff, and some of the stuff I found, you know, hasn't brought back the best memories. And I think back to, you know, my childhood and how he was raised, and he was raised at a time and with parents that would call my mom a dirty Polak. And, you know, back growing up, Polish jokes were all the rage, right? And you would think with a name like Smith, I'm not a Polak, but I am. And how things change. You know, nowadays you can't tell Polish jokes, but how funny they were. I was doing some notes. I think it was 1974 was the first time I was called the N-word. Because when my parents divorced in '68, my mother moved in with an African-American man in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which wasn't too cool in the 60s in Grand Rapids. But he raised me until I was in high school. And then we lost touch, and I finally got back in touch with him about 7 years ago. And I got to introduce him to his grandchildren. And, you know, my son would be the first one to tell you. He's watching because he told me to pull my shirt down. But he said, you know, Dad, Derek hugged me more than G-Pops ever did. And I never heard G-Pops tell me that he loved me. But Derek did every time we saw each other. And it's been over 46 years since I had to deal with that. And obviously I identify as a successful white male. But I can still remember him picking me up from that parochial all-white Catholic school in his yellow cab and asking me to sit in the front, and I would drop my books on the floor and bend over in an effort to hide because of the ridicule I'd get the next day. And those memories have been brought to the forefront in going through my father's belongings and my grandfather's. And I think the sins begin back with his parents, but I don't want to be like that. I was flipping through the station the other day, and I have a fascination with Anthony Bourdain, not just because people say I look like him, but he was a fellow man struggling with mental health and recovery. And Anthony lost his battle and ended up taking his own life. But this episode, he was in Laos. I've never been to Laos. But the moral of his story was Laos apparently is in between Vietnam and the American base. And for some ungodly reason, the U.S. Air Force were instructed to unload all of their unused bombs over Laos as they returned to their base. And he was in a hut with a man who had lost his arm and a leg, clearing some farmland next to his house from an unexploded, bomb that had been dropped 40 years earlier. And I was ignorant to all that stuff. I never knew that problem existed in Laos, and the recovery process is really painful. They have to walk through these fields with metal detectors, and then they're still setting things off even now. And it was a reminder to me of really how ignorance is bliss. But I don't want to turn a blind eye to some of the things that I know to be real still today. I want to encourage us to continue to work to address some of the shortcomings. You know, I work on that on a daily basis, and I'm guilty of still having character defects and flaws, but I know I can be better with all of you. On a lighter note, I want to make an appeal to everybody that might be listening and to the audience members that the Novi Youth Assistance Program really could use some volunteers. I think it's a resource for our community that's underappreciated and maybe misunderstood. The primary focus of NYA is prevention. Prevention from not just bullying, but kids hurting themselves and truancy issues. Not just poor kids, but, you know, affluent kids that are struggling with peer-to-peer pressure because they don't have a 4.3. And then, you know, I'm at Target a couple weeks ago, and which it was a little late because, you know, Target now has their bathing suits out, but I was there trying to find, they do. And I was trying to find snow pants and mittens and gloves for a family, for a pair of twins in 4th grade at one of our elementary schools. And, you know, I sit here and I take for granted that my kids don't have to worry about gloves and snow pants, but we have kids in our community, in our schools, that do. And it's groups like Novi Youth Assistance that provide that. It's easy to throw money in the basket at church. It's sometimes difficult to support some of our organizations that do meaningful work. So NYA, I just want to say a shout out to them, and anything you guys can do to support them would be appreciated. So thanks, guys, for your love and support over the last couple of weeks.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for your vulnerability. As I always say, you're an inspirational, admirable man, and you're a good guy. So we appreciate you and all you teach us every day. Any other board communication? Mrs. Hood?
I do have a lighter note. As board members, so the MASB is the Michigan Association of School Boards for the audience. And once a month, the board members in Michigan get a copy of MASB's booklet called Leaderboard. And I usually like visual aids here, and I forgot it at home. But in this month's Leaderboard, Dr. Matthews has a essay about his journey from being a parent to being an administrator in another district to being, at the same time, being elected as a board member in his home district. And he talks a little bit about those different roles and staying in your lanes as you go through those roles. And it was all very interesting. I will say, though, that his main ambition seems to be, or maybe the pinnacle of his career, and it was is it prescient when you kind of predict the future? Because he ends with saying he is now able to call a snow day. Anyway, it was a very nice essay, and I appreciate the reminder. As a board member, I appreciate the reminder of what lane we are in and who stays in what lanes. So that's one thing. The second thing, you know, with our Oxford Strong shirts on this evening, I had an opportunity to talk to Kelly Breen. She is our state representative. And I think I mentioned maybe a month ago, there's a new task force in the Michigan House of Representatives. It is the School Safety Task Force, and she is one of 8 members. Kelly Breen is one of 8 members on that task force. So it was just started in January 10th, I think, was their first meeting, and they have been doing a lot of, she said, significant work so far. They're trying to figure out how they best serve our students and really our school staff. So they've talked to the state police, they've talked to, Kelly is talking to Oxford parents tonight. they've engaged with Parkland parents. They have divided their work group into 6 areas. I guess I won't read them all, but they're, from physical safety or school hardening, that to mental health issues, staffing and personnel. She said they are crafting a survey for ISDs and districts that we'll be responding to. And she said that they are also studying the effectiveness of social and emotional learning and where it can be expanded to help a greater number of children, which I think is also timely. She did encourage us, if you Google, I Googled it, I didn't go to the Michigan House site, but I think you can probably get there. But if you Google Michigan House School Safety Task Force, there is, they want feedback from both the public, from those involved in schools. So it gives you an opportunity to give them some feedback on what you're thinking out in the communities. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hood, for that update. We'll all look forward to reading the storybook if we missed it. And yes, he can call a snow day or 2.
But sometimes I do.
But my daughter would say on my watch, but not 3. And although Mrs. Breen missed the opportunity for comments from the audience, she walked in and heard you speaking about her. So if anybody at the very end, when we go into closed session and you're out in the hall, has any specific questions about what Mrs. Hood shared, I am sure that Mrs. Breen would be happy to answer those. Any other comments from the audience?
The audience.
I mean, the board. I'm so confused. I'm sorry. You can be the audience and the board.
No, I just say I'd like to volunteer my services because I do believe Dr. Matthews' real life goal is to dethrone the Toll House cookie with the best chocolate chip cookie that he can make. So and then my dog is very upset. He did not call it snow day because the kids won't be around. No, that's it.
Mr. Cook, I've been asking for cookies for a while. You're doing a good enough job around here. Does anybody have any other comments? Okay. I think we are, as you look forward into our agenda, we will be moving into closed session in a minute or 2 here. And that is in regards to our second opportunity for discussion related to security. So that is timely in accordance with what's been happening out there and the task force that is meeting. In regards to the Oxford Strong shirts and whatnot, it's really an MHSAA program. I know that Mr. Gordon, our previous athletic director, along with our current Novi athletic director, Don, and the athletic office has really wrapped their arms around the fundraiser. I'm sure there's been thousands and thousands of shirts sold within the Oakland County community. It's been put out there to all the schools in the state of Michigan for the MHSAA event. So I'm looking forward to hearing how that went for them and the money that's been raised for that community and to support them. Not only tomorrow will you be able to get in free, Mr. Mena, but there are 3 additional athletic events that you can get into for free if you wear your Oxford Strong. I know you get in for free because you volunteer many hours, but the rest of us can also get in for free. So I think Tuesday is probably the next one, and I'm guessing maybe it's on the website or somehow it can be indicated which events over the next week that you may attend. Yes?
I would just like to say thank you on behalf of the board. Some of us got our T-shirts from Dr. Reskin, who volunteered to do that for us, so I appreciate that tremendously. Is it still possible for people to get T-shirts, do you know?
Yes.
From Danielle?
No. Not from Danielle, but if people wanted to still
Yes,
order them.
I
it's
think
possible.
that in order to get them for students to wear them tomorrow, if there was a deadline, so.
Okay.
But you can still order.
You can still
Yes.
order them and still support the.
I have
the
2
efforts.
quick, real funny stories, and I know that we want to go into closed session, and Dr. Matthews has a long drive ahead of him, but I'm very happy to see Mr. Smith in a T-shirt. That was one of my purposes, although he really dressed it up over there. So maybe one day we'll just see just a T-shirt. And the other thing is, on Monday evening, I was out in the backyard with a flashlight in the very dark, searching for the AirPods. I do that weekly, about 20 hours a week for my son. That's a whole nother story. And underneath the trampoline, in a white bag that had not been destroyed but just opened by my lovely puppy, if some of you follow me on Facebook know, she's bad, were all of these shirts underneath the trampoline. I didn't know what day they were being delivered. And the bag, I was like, what is that white thing under there? It's not the AirPods, it's a little bigger. And there were all of your shirts, so we're lucky to actually be wearing them.
So if we find tooth holes in them.
Nope, they were not destroyed, so that's my Oxford Strong story. So that being said, I think that we are ready for closed session, so I know we need a recommendation to go into closed session, so Dr. Matthews?
So the public body can meet in closed session for one or more purposes as specified. Tonight, we're going to talk about security and also get a written opinion from our attorney.
Thank you very much. If I may get a recommendation?
I move that the Novi Community School Board of Education moves into closed session for security and a written opinion from the attorney.
Support.
Recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mr. Mena. We need a roll call vote.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Hood?
Sorry.
Trustee Hood?
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Roney?
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. We will take a 5-minute break to clear the room and then we'll go into closed session.